Hello, hello. Wow. All right. This ought to be fun. Can you tell I got a new piece of equipment for the holiday? This camera ought to be a little bit better. Whether that's good or not, I don't know. But anyway, that is how it's going. Gonna try to keep up with the live chat tonight. Welcome to the Toy Armada with Aaron Archer. I am Aaron Archer. And hope everybody can hear me fine. We're in for a different one tonight. Man, bright light is bright. All right, turning me down a little bit. We are going to go against the grain a little bit, but in our process, we will get to Transformers by talking about Batman tonight, because everything builds to that for me. Hopefully, like I said, I got a new computer, so the view of my office junk and art ought to be more entertaining for everybody. Kind of side hustle of the live Friday nights is picking strange stuff off my shelves. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do a whole feature on all these guys. It's like almost a prank toy line to me. Like it came out and then didn't, because not too many people know of it. So it's kind of crazy. All right, a few people here. Thanks for coming on a Friday night. Hopefully you're staying warm wherever you are. I had a good week. Been working on some fun toy projects, and that was good. And I got to buy a bunch of Lego sets today, so pretty good week so far. Had some Star Wars figures in my hands, had some Marvel figures in my hands, looked at some G.I. Joe Viper Trooper thing, and I just couldn't get deeper into that. So I went with what I already have a lot of, and that's Lego. Oh, and I got a couple of Playmobil people, which can see them right there. They're like the Bomb Squad guy. And above me, I have a Viking type dude with horns and whatnot. So pleasant view of me looking up. So tonight we are focused on this beauty for a few moments. All right, everybody get a good gander at that. We are going way back in time. We will get back to all of this, but I just want to show everybody what it is we're talking about. This package has seen some love over its days. So this item came out in '96. So if you haven't followed along on some of the long form, I often talk about Kenner, and Kenner being a tradition of mech tech and feature-based play. If you think about Superpowers, Ghostbusters, Chuck Norris, Mask, it goes on and on and on. They were all about the features, innovative invention, patentable features also, and that was very important to those types of designers. That's what industrial designers live for in toys, to come up with that stuff. I am a little different, being an illustrator, character creator, story guy that kind of works with whatever I got to make stuff happen. So the patent stuff never really was my jam, um, but that is a big part of toys. Um, so management loved Batman. They loved warming up to Warner Brothers at any chance they could get. It was a big brand for Kenner. It was, the number two boys brand after Power Rangers in the 90s. Uh, so, it was a big deal. So came up with this idea. We had done so many Batman figures that obviously we've could celebrate that somehow. And management came up with this idea. This was not an organic thing from the team. Let's also go back in time. We're living in the mid 90s. Movie based products, TV based products, not too many one off items at all. One-off items might have come more in like the XRC category at Kenner, the one-off RC type featured play. Uh, in action figures, you have to go back to like the Alien figure, um, some of these weird singular toy figures. So they came up with this idea. Well, we need to celebrate that we're have done 100 figures, and let's celebrate that somehow and do this one-off figure. To the old guard, um, this kind of item was very strange. In some cases, I would say a bit laughable, and that's where I come in. I am the young idiot who is new. Um, this I can date this item because I found it in an old sketchbook here, that I was sketching this in August of 95. Okay, so I circled this one and 100th Batman there. Not quite what we ended up with, but you can kind of see some of the progressions and goofy stuff that I tried. But really, that's the winner right there. I was just 23 years old when I probably drew this. This was the type of item that those older, accomplished designers definitely fed to me and a few other guys like me. They saw this as a waste of time. This was a marketing item. This was more of a promotional thing, not anything to really write home about. You do a sculpt input, no big deal, done, 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 done. I don't want to dismiss it either, but it wasn't fun for them. It was pretty straightforward, if anything. So it was just boring, and not really where they like to do their work. So it fell to me, the new guy on the team, the youngest guy on the team. Remember, I started in January of 95, so I was 22 then. And so it came to me, and management at Kenner wanted it to be special, prestigious in some aspect, and they threw around that it should be vacuum metallized. So the VM, the chrome treatment, should be applied to this figure somehow. And that decision really causes this story to get interesting, I think. Because otherwise it's just another Batman figure. But the chrome aspect of this figure was a big deal. Now we're also living in a time in the mid 90s that these one-off items weren't made too often, and everything was made for kids. So we get told to make this prestigious item, but there was no way within our system to not have it be 4 and up. They didn't have any concept at that time of making an item that could change its age grading. They just didn't account for it. They worked at a certain level, and that was so as a result, chroming an item for a 4-year-old is very different than chroming an item for a collector item, or what would become collector items in the world we're living in today. So I'm not able to read the stuff and keep my train of thought. So if you're really asking questions or want to know something, hit me back later when I get off my diatribe here in about, who knows, 20 minutes. So that VM aspect really caused a problem. So we had to, if you've ever picked this item up or seen it open, it is a figure that is screwed to a kind of base platform. There's a base here and a backdrop, and the cape is permanently attached in between the neck and torso, and the legs are screwed on to the base. And it has articulation, but it really doesn't need it. The arms move better, but I mean the legs don't need to move really because it has nowhere to go. And I believe the head articulates slightly. And you see that batarang there, the giant ass batarang that I really don't know how any human could throw very far, but there it is. This is another issue. To have a dynamic guy in package, which is what we ended up designing towards, some sort of rooftop scene with the gargoyles and bats on the back, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Because this had to be age graded at 4, and we had to try to figure out how to glue this in or something to a VM'd part. It could get wedged loose, and we didn't want it to be a choking hazard. Again, 4 and up, different qualifications for safety. So this thing had to be this big in case it got loose and wouldn't fit into the choking tube at that time. So that is why that guy has a giant batarang, all because of this ages 4 and up. Okay, makes no sense, right? But this was one of the first kind of what was seen as a prestigious or premier, or we didn't really use the word collector at that time. We're still at a time where it's more people coming in from perfume or other kind of industries. So the treatment on the boxes were like faux gold, right? Hot stamping, clean, kind of a black and gold or black and white, or some sort of prestigious font there, typeface, which is not really that much. Now we get the sleeves that are in universe style, and like you almost don't even want to open the box, right? Because it's so cool. This thing is old school style, kind of not a kid toy kind of communication. Not really celebrating the brand all that much, just a bunch of bat logos, which isn't that big a deal. So to make the VM figure, I worked with my engineer, or not my engineer, but my good friend, Todd Patrick, who engineered this one. We had to create some sort of screwed in arm, because these aren't PVC arms. So the mushrooms had to be different, and you couldn't torque on the mushrooms and have the VM break. VM makes things fragile to some degree, more fragile. So certainly you don't use it for mushrooms, trapped between the torso halves. So it had to have a special breakaway or joint in there that we had to figure out. The neck was a big pain because it was very hard to sculpt it. To want to keep that there and look good. Unfortunately, that's probably the weakest part of this item for its time. Um, the hot stamping on the chest was really interesting. It had to be at a certain angle. Same with the front of the base here. It was really, you see, I don't know if you can see that. It's at kind of at an angle to the front. It goes back, and that was a bit of a tricky hot stamp. They had to create a jig to put all these in, so that hot stamped straight down. They wanted it flat coming out of Asia to make it easier, and we wanted this kind of wedge look. These are the little things you fight for sometimes that don't make sense, but anyway, we got away with it. At one point, we were only going to do like a one color VM, kind of a dark suit, and maybe paint the gloves. And we were really confident in that. And that's what we got in there. And every once in a while, the president of the company, maybe it was your time to get yelled at. And he really challenged us firmly and loudly that the thing needed to be totally VM, and didn't really want to hear any other, this needed to be special. And so we went back to the drawing board to figure out how to do this. So, wow, hello, Germany. So we had to figure out how to do this VM, and what we ultimately figured out, and this is how VM kind of works. So quick version of this. VM works a couple different ways, but let's say that the metallic flake is floating around, and it bonds to the plastic. Okay, not unlike chrome or nickel plating. Okay, so it bonds to the plastic, and like a tin foil. And then you seal that plastic onto the plastic with a coat, and that coat is usually a clear coat, and that's what gives you silver. And usually all of it is silver, right? What you're seeing is a tint either in that clear coat or added after the clear coat that creates the color. Okay, so that it's always chrome silver, but when you see it in other colors, it's the tint that you're applying. So what we had to do is we tinted the whole arm in the light blue of the glove. Okay, that was in the sealant. Then we booked that off, so we kind of grabbed the hand so that paint couldn't get on it. And then we actually, to get that dark gray, we actually sprayed transparent orange onto the transparent blue here, and that created that gray. So the silver changes the orange enough over that blue tint that it affected it and went darker. And that's how we got that color, which I've always found really, really intriguing. So the backdrop here, we also had to do this really weird. First of all, what do you put behind Batman? Usually he's either on a gargoyle or in front of a gargoyle, maybe a brick wall, an alley, maybe the top of a spire, right? So we didn't, some of those don't work well for toys, the top of the spire thing, for instance. But so we ended up with this weird amalgam, and this was kind of where we got to. But we had to make it really low relief. It couldn't be too thick because the mold, you didn't want a big hunk of plastic weighing this thing down. Matter of fact, this is, I think, ABS, and it's pretty much cored out in the back. So we just did a brick wall with a weird gargoyle thing, which was kind of big in the comics at the time. These iron, just kind of gargoyle symbol things around. And then these low relief bats flying by. He's standing on some sort of grate. That, when you see textures like that in plastic, that's a company that has all the mold textures that get sprayed into the molds. It's a company called Yiksang. So look up Yiksang patterns or something on the internet machine, and you'll find that all the different types of things. It's also like the rub downs of fashion plates, all those different styles, those different textures. Same deal. It's like you can put all of that on toys, different places. You see it mostly on like vehicles and play sets and things like that. So what else can I say about this guy? It got redecoed as a Hong Kong, some sort of celebratory Hong Kong exclusive. I think it may have gotten a Warner Brothers store treatment at the time. I wasn't involved on that one. If you go to the community tab, you can see the original press release for this debuting at the New York Warner Brothers store relaunch. The back, kind of has a whole song and dance about Batman overall and what he is, and then celebrating, separating his true story and kind of fantasy world with the one we're celebrating about collectors and kids loving the Dark Knight. And they basically have this. Let's see if that's going to work. List of all the Batman as Kenner and we counted at that time, starting with the Superpowers Batman. So that was considered the number one Batman. I won't go into all of that, but Total Justice was 99, so that was cool. I had a few in here by this time, even though I was only a year in. I probably had 6 or 7 already, so that was pretty cool. So that is kind of how a young kid like me got a project like this. And the weird thing was, because it was that big deal that management wanted to make, they did want me to go then and debut this. Someone had photos of the display from San Diego Comic-Con of that year. It was also at this relaunch of the Warner Brothers store. We had this pyramid thing that had them all there. Look at that guy. That is a Batman tie, by the way. So we had all 100 Batman around this pyramid. Here's a couple other views. I went to this store and spoke to the press, and there was a press release about how dynamic this was and a monumental thing. And it kind of was, if you think about it at the time. There hadn't been 100 of any figures or items. So this is how did I make it. I got a new computer and it is not playing well with my other overlay system, so I can't put these on screen the way I would like to. So I apologize for fumbling through photos here, but it is what it is. Look at that guy. That's the sculpt input and the wax. These were actual AP photos and stuff at the time. And you can tell that it was a big deal. That's me in the middle of Alan Hassenfeld and Dan Romanelli, I believe his name was, head of consumer products at Warner Brothers. I have probably never been between two richer men in my life. That's an understatement right there. Some more of these snapshots here. Look at that kid in the background, wondering where the future's going, I guess. It's fun to see all the Batman there. It's like the different eras. You got the movie, you got animated, you got the comic book, all right next to each other. A couple more. These are, again, the AP photographer looking for artsy photos, right? Look at that young guy. Again, 23. All right. So we did that, and that was pretty cool. Kind of weird now. I look at it. Let me get my water here real quick. It's a first try collector's item. Again, we didn't really call that then. collector's items back in the mid 90s. That was a little bit scary, uh, but clearly the beginning of such things. Um, and why I probably also got Alien Resurrection, because I had done some of these prestige format products, um, between the Target exclusives for Batman and Robin and this. I started, and because I came from American Greetings in college, and I had learned a little bit about printing at another business I had worked at. So these prestigious packaging with hot stamping and special treatments was kind of, and die cuts was kind of something I was into and knew about. So at the time, I also gravitated to these kinds of projects because I felt like I could contribute as a young designer, because I knew a little bit something about that world more so than, the industrial design world for sure at that time, which was very intimidating to me. And I appreciate all the learning from a variety of characters there. Um, so that is kind of the story of the 100th edition Batman. Um, you know, if you got any questions on that, we can talk about that. I think I showed everything I got the sketches, the photos, the toy, right? And that's that. So how'd we do? Oh, we almost made it a half hour. It's like a whole feature on that one. Uh, so really young, fun stuff. Fun stuff. Was it considered a success? Yeah, I don't think they made a crazy, crazy amount of those. Again, I think it was a little bit of like a loss leader. I think management wanted to make a good showing, sell something, promote something, to celebrate our continuing contribution to that line and that franchise. So I think it was considered a success for what it was meant to do. Sometimes, a lot of times, that is the measure of success, not necessarily how much business it did, but did it keep everything moving along. Um, Hello, people. So now we're halfway through. So, hey, this is the live Friday Toy Armada. Kind of starting to be the designer deep dive, I guess. Uh, Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. We got 20 folks. It's good. Um, it is Friday night, so I hope everybody's having a good one. Thanks for coming. Let's see. Claudia, was there any artist work that you were looking at to get some inspiration for this mold? Um, Not Kelly Jones on this one. On the Legends of the Dark Knight one, the cape, I certainly was inspired by what they allowed him to get away with the cape, and I was a big fan of Bernie Wrightson. So sometimes, certainly, there were artists that came into play. This one had to kind of fit within the Legends of Batman style, because for a while it fit under that heading, and then it kind of deviated into its own thing. So at the time, and if you look at it, it's like the one of the cleanest Legends of the Dark. I mean, Crusader Batman, I guess, but um, it's a clean version of Batman, and it has that posed uh, style. I think he's a little taller. Um, so it was really about the vernacular of the toy, so it didn't stand out, right? So here we go. We're gonna make a one-off special character, special toy, but don't make it go too far from everything, because you don't want it to stand out as a weird. So these were the weird directives you could sometimes end up with. Um, so I don't think I looked at anybody particular other than just the Batman artists of the mid '90s. Um, so what was Hasbro's first reaction to Power Rangers? You know, Power Rangers at Hasbro really wasn't, again, that big a deal. It was kind of I mean, it certainly was a moneymaker, but it was the same kind of thing like Holiday Barbie or just Barbie in general. It was like, well, we're not really in the business of that kind of toy, so they're gonna do really well with something like that. Didn't really compete with that. Kenner was definitely into the licensed movie action if they could get it right. So and or this mech tech stuff. So importing stuff from Japan was still not what Kenner did. The Transformers was really the lone exception, right? And so I don't know. I don't want to downplay it. I mean, the sales couldn't be beat, though we weren't really competing apples to apples. So, it, it's kind of a long-winded answer. I don't know what the reaction was, but we really didn't consider much of it. Um, did I have any involvement in Machine Wars? I did not have any direct involvement in Machine Wars at all. I don't even think I sat through a brainstorm. But the people developing those items were right in the offices next to me, across from me, two doors down, sat in the same team meetings. So I overheard the business of the team. So I have, you know, a recollection of a lot of things, which we talked about on Trans Tech this week on the full live version. If you haven't seen that, check that out. Um, if you're finding me just today, hey, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Um, so I kind of have some. I was in the war room stories, but I didn't do anything directly with Machine Wars. How does it feel to be the one to design such a monumental figure? At the time, it felt pretty cool because it was special, and when you're a young designer, you kind of want to have uh, something to hang your hat on. I know some people who worked for 2 years and never got an item out. I had redecos and things that they were trying to rush through because of Batman and Robin success that I got items out within the first, I think 13, 9, 10, 13 months, something like that. So I kind of had a charmed life. So uh, getting that item was pretty cool because it was focused on by the company. And so, uh, you know, kind of cool. Um, but I don't know how it's supposed to make me feel. It's just part of the Batman history, part of Kenner history. And now that Kenner's kind of gone and that longevity, that timeline of how many figures are there is a little different. So I don't know. That's a shame. But it's an interesting figure. For the time, it's bold. It doesn't look like much now, but it's bold for its time. Trust me on that. Um, Yeah, he always had a darker suit. The light gray suit would have just looked too chromy. Um, so that didn't happen. Yep, Kenner did do VR Troopers. I forget why they did that. I think that was a partnership that Kenner had with somebody related to VR Troopers specifically, because it was never really a big focus. But I was just coming in as VR Troopers was getting its first shots and stuff in the company, and the show was coming out. Was the VAC process fine on other lines because of the recommended age bracket? Well, it was because of how action figures were made and played with. When you VM some big car shell or something, it's not going to crack the same way. It's going to, you can plot, snap it in a different way so that it doesn't take the abuse and everything. Uh, Repeated articulation of an action figure as they test these things, it's a lot of abrasion, and you're gonna start wearing off the tints and stuff. So it was just really tricky. I don't know how other brands did it. That's just what I had to deal with at the time. I think it also had a deal with because we sold so many Batman to 4 and under. This one item wasn't going to, or 4 and over. This one item wasn't going to be 4 and over. that seemed a little preposterous to the legal team and actually the QA team, that you could qualify that the mom wouldn't make a mistake grabbing a Batman on the shelf she knew and trusted to always be safe, to all of a sudden maybe not be safe. So they had very logistical reasons to do that, logical reasons to do that. But looking back now, we have so many different categories and qualifications and markers that you can put on the box: adult toy only, um, collector's item, statue, not meant for play, a lot of different things you see. So um, again, that's what made this one interesting and difficult, to kind of break through some of those new realities for Hasbro. Uh, no, we never did pitch a transforming Pokemon line. We never wanted. We couldn't blend those two things. Tomy and Takara, at the time, couldn't be blended, right? Now that wouldn't exactly be a problem, but that when it was really hot, that could not have happened. Those two companies weren't going to work totally well together. Um, is there any Batman or DC in general character that was a hard sell? I remember a designer saying that Constantine is always difficult because it's just a dude in a trench coat. Well, dudes in trench coats, that could be Harvey Bullock, is that his name? Or Bullock. Commissioner Gordon. It could be Alfred in a tuxedo. Um, could have, any gangsters, Rupert Thorne or any of these guys. Any guys in just trench coats were not. That's not what kids wanted at the time. Um, the old men in trenches, of ventriloquist, good example. Temple Fugit, another good example. Old dudes in suits, not not fun toys. That's not superhero fun. Great stories, great animation, great excitement for how you can tell that, but to reenact that kind of story with an old guy in a suit avatar just isn't the first place a kid wants to go. There's going to be other better villains for a lot of those. So any of those guys were hard sells. And then female characters, Catwoman, Batgirl, or Poison Ivy were tricky. That you got one or two, right? Harley Quinn was a hard one. We're going to do a deep dive in Harley Quinn for sure. Um, so that those are some examples. There is a 200th Batman figure. I think it's a Batman Beyond figure, with Batman and with Batman and Robin. Not Batman. I misspoke earlier. Batman Forever is what I had done early. But with Batman and Robin doing really well, there was a lot of figures for that one. Animated blew up at the same time, and so we got to 200 really quick. There's Batman Beyond. So, and then the license transferred not long after that. Yeah, it was meant to, when we designed it, it was kind of meant to look like an old hood ornament kind of look for the 200th Batman Beyond wings opening up look. Yep. Joker in a trench coat was about the only one we could get away with because you could make the trench coat purple or blue or whatever. And that's what it looked like in the show. So yeah, the Penguin's another guy in a tuxedo. At least he sometimes had an interesting look, but not as fun as Man Bat or the Joker or Clayface or some of the more wild look. And that is exactly why Ra's al Ghul was not in his normal outfit and had to be made. I did Ra's al Ghul, so was kind of created that weird suit of armor and put together the mask and the sword and from the show and tried to Make it not just an old dude in a suit. Absolutely. That is absolutely a good observation why animated Raja Ghul looks the way he does. Um, like I was a shelf warmer for a lot of different reasons at the time. Uh, I still dig it though. You know, I'm glad you do too, Robot Assassins. Appreciate that. Um, so we're burning it up tonight. It's already 10:40, 10:41. Uh, Getting a full dose of Batman tonight. That's fine. That's good. You can tell I remember a lot about those days too, not just the Transformer days. So when I learned about the VM, I kind of learned I knew how to apply it, and that's why I didn't apply it too often to Transformers, because honestly, it was really pain to do, and it only became more prohibitive. And now I think I don't know. It's kind of a cumbersome extra process. So uh, I don't want to misspeak. So, but that's why Transformers, we just didn't do a ton of it too often during my era, anyway. Oh, really? Ha, I created that armor. That's funny. That's funny. At least how it looks in the toy. Um, what else can we talk about? So that's the Batman of it all. Yeah. So by the time that came out, I was still. It came out pretty quick because it came out in '96. Uh, so yeah, you see, so the Scourge Chrome is a good example. That's a big piece, big easy piece to kind of lock in, and it's not going to move and get friction against it. It opens up. A lot of them get scraped up on the sides, right? Because if you knock it over and wanted to play that way, um, you're gonna have it scraped up a little bit. But that's a good way to use Chrome in Transformers in some sort of extra bit where it's not going to get too messed up. Um, chroming also makes things. Not only makes them brittle, but it's adding extra layers, right, of subtle depth, and that makes the joints thicker and trickier on Transformers. If you remember some of the Beast Wars, Black Arachnia, um, those areas get finicky, and break, dangerously. So that's another reason chroming didn't happen too much on Transformers. Uh, yeah, that tie down was also a pain. That was also a requirement for whatever reason, around his neck or area, cape area. Uh, QA always, the worry was that it would get loose, and that's why it's screwed on to the feet. And you know, uh, again, we didn't make a lot of items like that at the time, so there was a lot of firsts and a lot of worries, because all the things that they had created to avoid movement, like backer trays and twisty ties and everything, was what we were purposely trying to get away from. So that scared a lot of people. Now, I was young and dumb, so I didn't know what I didn't know. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna draw this cool Batman, and I'm gonna sit here, and didn't understand all the management edicts were really not to me. They were to all these other groups, that you're going to create a great finish for this. It's going to stand alone. It's going to be in a package that really presents it well. It's going to be worth the money. So I just had to make it stand really well. Um, All right. I would love to spotlight a Hasbro Batman Beyond toy. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Um, my local toy store, Happy Pappy's in Canton, Ohio, um, just got a whole bunch of Batman Beyond figures, almost every one of them, um, all loose. But I looked through all of them. I didn't realize all the redecos we did too. Wow. So anyway, we'll get there to a Batman Beyond overview, deep dive, no doubt. A lot of great, interesting stories to tell. Not, yeah, we'll save that for that day. Um, I'm curious why Armada Scavenger is an Autobot despite being a Devastator homage. Because I didn't know any better, honestly. Early days, we were trying to use cool names. I wanted to use those colors, and I just didn't really think it over. So there you go. Do you know if there is a catalog of the licensed merchandising with Transformers animated? There's a lot of undocumented product. For example, I had a Starscream luggage, which I'd never seen on the internet. Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff. Every region would have different deals, even. So you'll find like even something unique that only came out in one country, or one kind of region. That and so there are tons of things. I I remember there being some kind of big lists back in the day, but I don't know who held those, and I don't recall. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of Armada stuff from all over. That's for sure. We know of a Stalker prototype for Batman Beyond line. Was there other Batman Beyond villains who were gonna get toys that were never materialized? Um, yeah, Stalker was kind of the striped, tattooed, tough guy. We actually got, I think, plastic samples of him, but not painted. Um, so I don't know. Blight came out. Did Ink come out? I don't remember. I did an input for Ink. Um, did the Batman Digital Justice book have any influence on those Batman Beyond figures? Well, that's a whole different story. Because what if I left you with the concept that those digital Batman Beyond figures didn't start as Batman Beyond figures? Let that sink in. There's a whole other line and a whole other story there. We'll get to that one. Batman's tough, or Superman's tough. I mean, Batman is a perfect toy vehicle, right? He's a rich guy consumed with protecting and fighting evil, protecting against evil, fighting evil. Um, no matter the cost, he's so dedicated. He has perfected every scientific and physical process to make himself the best at anything. He's smart too, so he's anticipated anything. He's desperately rich, so he can literally create, do anything he wants. And he really is into bats, so everything has a bat theme. That is a designer's dream. You can make up anything, anything. Just tell the story how he's protecting Gotham somehow against these villains in an anti-approach, right? Anti-poison ivy. Okay, I bind cutters and poison filters and these kinds of things. Tree climbers, whatever is needed. That's great toy stuff. So Batman is easy to make toys out of. Superman is perfect. He can do everything. He's strong. He can freeze. He can burn. He can hear things. You can't do that with. How do you hear something? How do you do X-ray vision too often? How do you uh, how do you show so super hearing? Right? You almost can't. You almost can't. Ninjatron, that is awesome. That's hilarious. Ninjatron just sent me the Raja Ghul armor from the show. Wow. All right. Hey, you know what? I've made a contribution. That's nice. Thanks for letting me know about that. Um, because I got a lot of ridicule back in the day that I had to make something up, and it wasn't a show accurate villain like almost all the other ones had been up to that point. Anyway, so that's kind of cool. So I deviate. So much so I forget what I was talking about. Oh no. Um, so Superman is a lot tougher to do toys of because how many bending bars can you do, or it's kind of red eyes to kind of symbol the fire in his eyes or whatever. It's just tough for Superman. So you don't need as many figures. His villains are more cosmic and weird, even further than than Batman's, who seem kind of they hold guns and stuff, where Superman's villains are Brainiac, and that's tougher. That's tougher. So Superman is not a fun toy line to go too deep into. Once you pass a couple, you're in kind of weird territory. Again, a lot of people in weird suits. Uh, so yeah, and I'll say so. I'll add this. We're coming to an end here, but when Marvel came into the Hasbro world, I was the one of me and Steve Bono, both who had spent a lot of years on Batman. I think we're the only two people kind of constantly going, why are we promoting the Hulk? Why aren't we promoting Iron Man more? Because Iron Man was an unknown commodity at the time, a little bit, Robert Downey Jr. and everything. And I was like, he's just like Batman. He's rich. He creates armor that does whatever you need, and you can make endless toys out of that. Like, why are we focusing on the Hulk? And history is what history is. Look that up. Um, we should have done more Iron Man. Uh, well, we will get to the Batman Beyond for sure. Um, exactly. Yeah, you'd think maybe more aliens and robots in a toy line would be a plus. Not always. I mean, kids don't know Superman like they know Batman. Um, so I mean, it was tough in Batman too to get too far down the line. I presented Lockdown, the kind of the guy who threw people in jail, and a few other villains along the way in animated, and no, just no go. They're just not popular enough, not known enough. So when we tell the story of Harley Quinn being made in animated, that will be a interesting story because that was the first one that we really fought to overcome something. Um, okay, so the ink, I did an ink figure input for Batman Beyond, so I guess that probably never came out. I'm not sure it got. I think it maybe got sculpted up, but I don't think I ever saw any kind of even urethanes on that one. Um, had a really interesting toy feature. Tried to, I think we did a bendy wire thing. Um, so, not a bad night here. Um, everybody did pretty well. We've got 20 people been hanging out. Appreciate that. Got about 10 more minutes. So I appreciate everybody letting me talk a little bit about Batman. Hope you understand I'm as passionate about that as Transformers, even though we're, uh, a lot of us are Transformer fans. Did Kenner design any fast food toy? I don't know. That is usually handled by a whole separate unit and not the way those deals work. You weren't really taking Hasbro design talent and time to do those kinds of projects that didn't directly benefit the brand. So we didn't really have too much input into those fast food toys. We didn't even do a lot for the BotCon toys. Um, I don't want to talk too far out of turn, but a designer's, we're selling millions of toys across lines and stuff. So a couple hundred BotCon toys was a negative use of a design person's time, quite honestly, for what what they earned for their design skills. So we would that's why Fun Publications would handle a lot of that, because it wasn't even worth our time to get to that level. So we probably didn't do a lot of the fast food stuff. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I know how I would approach any Batman movie based on what I learned at Kenner, but no one's they're following a bit of the playbook, but I think they're following it through by looking at a copy of a copy of a copy. They need to go back to some core ideas, and they might have something, but it ain't my problem. Yeah, I did the glow in the dark blight. That was my input. One of my few monsters I got to make. So yeah, I'm connected to a lot of weird toys. We have talked Transformers, a lot of my friends here, for a long time, and I got way more stories on some other brands and projects that you might also remember and actually have had as a child. Because I was a kid, I was again designing that 100th edition Batman at 23, so pretty wild, pretty wild. Small Soldiers is on the list. Whether I gotta have certain people come in, because anything that I'm not connected to directly, I don't want to just, unless I was like on the same team or inherited input. On Trans Tech, I know a lot more, but I don't want to speak out of turn on something I really didn't work on, even though I know certain things. Um, I got to get the right partners in here. But now that I've upgraded my computer and I've lost my overlay system, I got to start over with that, with something that works with my system. And then I can have two-way calling and the artwork come up, or I won't have to flash the photos and everything. So if you haven't, like and subscribe. If you haven't checked out my other stuff, I'm at archermonster.com. You can find everything there. Check out the long form podcast. We just put out Trans Tech. It's doing really well. People must have really been interested in that one. And we got some ideas about the next one. I think we're gonna try either Beyblade or Alternators 2, but we haven't set a date yet. We'll see what happens. Or it could be something completely different. I don't know. But what I'm going to start asking for is suggestions for anything particular that you do like. Hit me up on the Instagram at archermonster_creative, and or through YouTube here. If you have any particular things you want me to deep dive into or focus on particularly. Uh, yeah. Car Robots is on the list. Again, I'd like to bring some other people on. It'd really be cool to have a Japanese partner on, but that seems a little tricky at the moment. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Well, the hour went by fast. Um, thanks for bearing with me. Hope you learned a little bit about the 100th edition Batman. Um, appreciate seeing the familiar faces. So we'll do this again next week. I don't know what the topic will be, but for sure we'll have something fun to talk about. So thanks for everybody coming, and see you next week. Thanks.